In Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, there are countless characters that undergo an interesting character arc, but one of the more underrated names that stand out is Mike Ehrmantraut and his journey from a parking lot attendant to a lethal hitman. He is often portrayed as a calm and collected man, never allowing his ambitions or ego to overstep others, and is often undermined by many enemies. But Mike is far from an amateur. On one side, he is a man who is able to carry out 18 assassinations without leaving a single trace of evidence. On the other side, he is a caring family man who aims to financially take care of his granddaughter, Kaylee, and his daughter-in-law, Stacy. And to say his journey is a rather simple one, a cold-blooded hitman carrying out orders on behalf of his employer, is far from the truth. Because if you've seen Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, you will know Mike goes through trials and tribulations within his criminal career. Despite being a calculated and sophisticated man, Mike Ehrmantraut eventually suffers his fate, where we will discuss his tragic downfall. For 30 years he was employed at the Philadelphia Police Department, where corruption was seen often. Mike also had a son, Matt, who followed his steps in joining the police force. However, he was murdered by two corrupt police officers who had felt Matt would expose them. So Mike avenges his son and kills the two policemen, where he would quit his job and relocate to Albuquerque. There he could live closer to Kaylee and Stacy whilst working as a parking lot attendant. Through there he would meet Jimmy McGill and develops a friendship.
Screw you, geezer!
The characteristics Mike seemed to possess is a man of ambition. Having lost his son, he wants to provide for his granddaughter, but working as a parking lot attendant was simply not enough for his dreams. So he approaches a shady friend, seeking a second job where he would become a bodyguard for Daniel Warmold, a small-time amateur criminal who sells stolen prescription pills to Nacho. In Mike's mind, if he doesn't get rich somehow, he will never get to provide for his granddaughter, so he takes the opportunity and endeavours into the criminal world. And through Daniel, he meets Nacho, who sees Mike's potential and has a job for him, to assassinate his boss, Tuco Salamanca. But Mike realises Tuco's death will draw too much attention from the Mexican drug cartel, so he frames Tuco in an arrest instead. Purposely scraping Tuco's car and acting clueless, Tuco was arrested for assault and robbery, where he was sentenced for 5 years. We can see how Mike thinks about his actions and consequences for the reasoning for not killing Tuco, but he was unaware to think that he has now exposed himself to the Mexican drug cartel. As a result, Hector Salamanca, the boss of Tuco and a capo of the Mexican cartel, would find Mike and offer him $5,000 to tell the police that Tuco's gun is actually his.
I'm looking for the best possible outcome for everybody. And for your trouble, you take home $5,000.
But after Mike refuses, Hector has his men break into his house in an attempt to change his mind. After that fails to work, Hector resorts to threatening his granddaughter. Realizing he is now putting his family at danger, Mike negotiates the deal to $50,000 and accepts the gun charge.
$50,000. And the gun is yours.
With the money, he is able to help Stacy buy a new house, allowing his dreams to begin to come true. Although this is good money, it's still not enough for him. Realizing just how little $50,000 meant to Hector, Mike begins to plot a robbery on him. Starting by scouting an ice cream parlor where he previously met Hector, realizing that the ice cream delivery trucks are actually decoy trucks carrying drugs or cash. A few days later go by and Mike would rob one of the trucks for $250,000. This is where Mike would realise he is able to truly be the financial provider for his loved ones. He carelessly spends money on drinks for everyone at the bar, but what he failed to realise was the consequences of his actions, as after the robbery Hector would kill an innocent person who later happened to stumble across the robbery.
Made it like it never happened.
And that good Samaritan?
Hector shot him in the face.
Having now felt somewhat guilty and angry, Mike comes to the conclusion of taking out Hector, but in the final moments of pressing the trigger, Mike's position is compromised by his car horn going off, where he finds a note left by a mysterious someone reading, "Don't." Later we find out that mysterious someone happened to be Gustavo Fring. If you've not already, check out my previous video where I showcase his side of the story. But moving on, Gustavo explains his reasons for wanting Hector alive. Both of them having similar interest in taking out Hector, they plan on ambushing another one of Hector's trucks, where Mike would shoot a pair of shoes filled with product, causing it to spill all over the truck. At the border, the police dogs find the drugs, where the truck is seized and Hector's main smuggling routes are jeopardized. Mike's actions so far have been somewhat justified. The police officers he killed in the beginning were in vengeance for his son. Him framing an evil criminal to jail is pretty self-explanatory, or him robbing Hector who threatened his family. However, he constantly fails to realise that his choices and actions have consequences within the criminal world. Because he robbed a truck, an innocent life was taken, and later whilst at Stacy's support group, where they talk about their troubles and experiences grieving, he meets the wife of the man killed, where she expresses her constant troubles. Mike, feeling guilty and regretful, approaches Gustavo to seek help in laundering the remaining $200,000 he has left for the man's family. This shows Mike's generous and caring nature. Although Mike is somewhat emotionally disconnected with most people, paying back everything he had to the man's family shows his regret for his actions. He is unable to express his regret in a form of communication, rather he expresses it through financially assisting those he cares for. The same could be said for his daughter-in-law and granddaughter. His biggest regret was his time of being a corrupt cop, and feels he is to blame for his son's death, making his main priority to financially take care of his wife and daughter. Unlike Walter, he doesn't want to join the criminal world for egotistical reasons or status. He strictly wants to make his money to pay his internal debt. But how much is too much? At what point is enough money for him to leave? And we'll get onto that later. Meanwhile, the next traumatic experience Mike goes through is the death of Werner, an innocent engineer secretly working on Gustavo's laundromat, not realizing he is building the very foundation of his drug empire. Being away from his family and home for months, he becomes homesick and slips information about the confidential project to Lalo, who tricks him posing as one of Gustavo's men. And Werner accepts his fate and Mike executes him. Having an innocent man killed from his actions, to now killing an innocent man, leaves him questioning his actions, drinking away his sorrows, leading him to make bad decisions. I previously mentioned how much money is too much money for Mike. Whilst working for Gustavo and Jimmy as a private investigator, Mike would make an insane amount of money. Although it's not mentioned, we can imagine it's more than enough for him to live and see his family grow up. In Breaking Bad, one of the more important scenes that stood out is where Mike reminisces the days of when he was a cop.
My partner's out sick, and it's just me. And the call comes in, and it's the usual crap. Broke her nose in the shower kind of thing. So I cuff him, put him in the car, and away we go. And I kneel him down, and I put my revolver in his mouth. And I told him, this is it. This is how it ends. And after a few minutes, I took the gun out of his mouth. And I say, so help me, if you ever touch her again, I will such and such and such and such and blah, blah, blah. But 2 weeks later, he killed her. The moral of the story is, I chose a half measure when I should have gone all the way.
His experience as a cop and soldier likely justifies his assassinations as simply a job needed doing. Other than the 2 cops in the beginning, the majority of his assassinations were on behalf of his employees' interests. Gustavo ordered the death of many people for his own reasons. Innocent or not, Mike saw it as a job that needed doing. After realizing Walter kills Gustavo, Mike attempts to kill Walter, seeking vengeance for his former boss. But he is unable to, due to him being associated with Gustavo's now exposed meth operation. So together Walter, Jesse and Mike plan to break into the police department and destroy Gustavo's laptop, discarding any information. After they're all in the clear, Walter visits Mike to see if he's still looking for a job, as they continue their meth operation.
I'm sorry the kid here doesn't see it, but I sure as hell do. You are time bound. Dig, digging. And I have no intention of being around for the boom.
But soon after, he would eventually join to become the distributor for Walter's new operation, where Walt and Jesse would handle the production side and he would handle the distribution aspect of the operation. However, Mike was right. Although they ran a somewhat successful operation, Walter was a ticking time bomb, and his ego would eventually cause an outbreak.
I don't owe you a damn thing. All of this, falling apart like this, is on you. Wow. Wow. Oh, that's some kind of logic right there, Mike.
Blaming each other for all the disasters that have occurred since Gustavo's death. And in a fit of rage, Walter shoots Mike in the stomach. He manages to escape to a nearby river where he sits down on a log, accepting his long-lived fate. Unlike most deaths in Breaking Bad, Mike's death was unnecessary and was the unfortunate outcome of Walter's anger, which made it all the more sad.